As such, in determining the point of order by the UPND Member of Parliament on Honorable Usambo, the Speaker should have been guided on whether or not the subject of the point of order had been raised in the past, either in Parliament or in a court of competent jurisdiction. That should have been the first thing she should have asked herself. Is this a novel matter? Is it coming to me for the very first time? Is it coming to Parliament for the very first time? Has it not been adjudicated upon by the courts of law? That should have been her first question. Even before going to the Constitution or going to an Act of Parliament, she should have first asked the question, is this a brand new matter in Zambia's jurisdiction? Having asked that question, the Speaker should have been pointed to the fact that indeed this matter was not coming for the first time. Numerous members of Parliament whose seats were nullified by the High Court remained in their seats awaiting the final determination of the appeal of to the superior courts, including, as the case is after the amendment of the Constitution, by the Constitutional Court. Dozens of cases can be cited, including the famous case of Emmanuel Munaide, who sat in Parliament and the matter was only determined by the Superior Court in the 5th year of his being in Parliament. That's when the matter was concluded. But he was in Parliament. There are many other cases that a person can point to. Numerous members of Parliament have sat in that Parliament while their matters are appealed and are awaiting determination by superior courts. Madam Speaker Nelly Muti should have been informed that her predecessor, Honorable Justice Dr. Patrick Matibini, State Counsel, had occasion of addressing a similar matter in the case of Honorable Geoffrey Bwalya Mwamba. She should have been informed. Notwithstanding the above, the Constitutional Court, in the case of Margaret Monakatwe versus Charlotte's Court, in which the Constitutional Judge Mulembi held as follows, and I quote, that notwithstanding, after giving careful reflection to the arguments by learned counsel on all sides of this matter, and to the written submissions, I come only to one conclusion, that the parties have anchored their arguments on the provisions of the applicable or relevant law, the full interpretation of which is the preserve of this court duly constituted pursuant to Article 129 of the Constitution. In that regard, I note that Article 72(2) of the Constitution addresses instances when the office of a member of Parliament becomes vacant. Of particular relevance to this application is Article 72(2)(h), where one can cease to be a member of Parliament following a decision of the Constitutional Court. My considered view is that I see no need to entertain this application for stay any further, when by operation of law and in terms of the Constitution, it is clear when a seat becomes vacant. One of the instances is when the Constitutional Court makes a final determination on a seat that has been nullified. In the premises, I find this application for stay of execution of the judgment of the court below irrelevant, because when there is an appeal, emphasis is mine, when there is an appeal, the law, as per constitutional provisions, has stated that the seat only becomes vacant after the final determination of the Constitutional Court. End of quote. This judgment, members of the press and their citizens, is very instructive. And by the way, it is as valid now as it was when it was first delivered. No court, up to now, no court has obtained it, and it is therefore the law. And Madam Speaker ought to have known that. This is the law as is obtaining in the Republic of Zambia today. And the only one who can obtain this is the Constitutional Court itself, not a lower court, and not any other body, irrespective of the qualifications of the person who holds that office. Not the president, not the Speaker of the National Assembly. The only ones who can obtain this ruling is the Constitutional Court. And by the way, in so doing, the Constitutional Court will have to give reasoned ratio as to why they are departing from the upholding of another judge. They can't just willy-nilly say, we disregard what the other judge said, we'll take this position. They have to give a reasoned position. I said no other body but the Constitutional Court itself. Further, Madam Speaker should be quickly reminded that her role is to chair meetings. To chair meetings, not to direct meetings, to chair meetings of the legislature, whose functions are limited to legislating and not interpreting the law. Parliament is not set up to interpret them. And the chair of that entity cannot give himself or herself the power beyond the power that's vested by the Constitution to that institution. Its authority ends at legislating. The role of interpreting the law is for the judiciary. As for constitutional provisions, ladies and gentlemen, the Constitution is very clear. It clearly and unequivocally preserves the right to interpret constitutional provisions to the Constitutional Court, no other court. Not the High Court, not the Court of Appeal, not even the Superior Court, Supreme Court. The law, the Constitution of Zambia, reserves the right of interpreting constitutional provisions only to the Constitutional Court. And before, Madam Speaker, was a constitutional provision, Article 72. And all of a sudden, Madam Speaker gives herself the authority to interpret. Madam Muti should have been reminded to take judicial notice of the fact that a similar matter was brought for her predecessor's consideration. The Constitutional Court, in the matter of Tishimba Kambui versus the Attorney General, was categorical on the matter. It held that the Speaker has no right to interpret the law, as this is a preserve of the Constitutional Court. If the Constitutional Court directed Matibili, State Counsel, former judge, that he had no power to interpret a constitutional provision, surely would we expect the same court to say the now Speaker has assumed that power? If a gentleman who served as judge was told by fellow judges, stop, you have no power. Even if you're still wearing a wig like us, that wig is only for legislating. They told him, stop it, don't do it. Surely, a Speaker who has never been a judge should be given more power than a Speaker who has been a judge. What an absurdity. How shameless. Tunamwambia ukamtauseza. Ladies and gentlemen, I earlier remarked about the proximity of these matters. Now I wish to question why the Speaker of the National Assembly decided to depart from the long-held doctrine of avoiding sub judice by commenting on matters whose subject is already before a competent court of law. My dear friends, the 9 of you, it has been a practice in all Commonwealth parliaments. It has been a long-held tradition to signify the separation of power, that if a matter is before the judiciary, the legislature will keep quiet. If that matter is brought before the legislature, you members of parliament are precluded from commenting on it. And this is because the authors of democracy, those who have been practicing democracy for a long time, have held that there must be a distinct separation of authorities between the three wings of government. So that what is happening in the legislature must not influence the decisions of the courts and vice versa. That is the doctrine of sub judice. And I'm advising you, members of parliament, to take keen interest when there's a matter in court and the question is brought. Don't get involved in parliament because you'll be cited for sub judice. One of the first lessons that Madam Lady Moti should have been taught when she was being oriented as Speaker of the National Assembly is this rule. Because this is the rule that ensures that there is efficacy of the three wings of government. I will not blame her, I will blame first the one who assured us that he was going to appoint people on merit. He made Zambians believe he was going to appoint angels, infallible people. The second I'm going to blame is the team that oriented Madam Loti. Imagine that. If indeed they gave her a good orientation, let them own up and say she is just incorrigible. That we told her, but she didn't want to listen. They will take the blame away from them. For now, I will not blame her. I will blame her appointing authority, and I will blame those who oriented her. I will also blame the one to whom she gave oath of office. She swore she was going to defend the Constitution. And now what has she done? Abrogated the very Constitution she swore upon. In this case that I'm referring to, as all of you are aware, an organization calling itself GEARS petitioned the Constitutional Court on the continued stay of these, our members of parliament, the 9 of them. Before the determination of the matter by court, Madam Speaker has decided to make a determination by declaring that Lusambo is wrongfully in the House. She has literally told the Constitutional Court, don't even determine this matter, I've determined it myself. As Speaker of the National Assembly, I've determined it. Because I preside over the House that made the law, so I'm now telling you what I wanted the law to read. To read like, you don't even bother. What governance is this? Yes. I'm now wondering, what will the Constitutional Court hear? What matter will they determine? Because it has already been determined. That is a breach, serious breach of the doctrinal sub judice. However, my dear friends, a number of very pertinent questions arise from Madam Speaker's conduct. One, how could a person of her experience, one who was so highly talked about by her appointing authority, make such an elementary mistake? How? She was really presented to us like she was the most formidable person to hold that office. How could she make such an elementary mistake? How? A pupil of social studies would know better. Because children at primary school these days, they know that there is president heading the executive, there is chief justice heading the judiciary, there is speaker heading the legislature. A little child knows that. Now, how could this person who was spoken so highly about possibly forget this elementary, basic element of democracy? How? It beats my mind. The second question that follows, and again, having known Madam Nelly Muti, the second question that follows is, was Madam Speaker working with independence of mind? Was her mind free when she was writing that ruling? Was her mind settled when she was delivering it? The third question, and this arises, my dear friends, from our experience in Parliament, and I have to say, without mincing my words, the capacity that you Zambians built in the institution of Parliament is highly commendable. If there is any entity that has a high level of institutional memory, it is the National Assembly. If there is an entity that has people who have been trained and retrained and grilled for the job, it is the National Assembly. And now one wonders, where were all those advisors and those experienced clerks of the National Assembly when Madam Speaker was writing such a nonsensical ruling? Where were they?
I wonder. Shut down, cut down.
Where were they? Advisors at National Assembly, you are there not to serve only the office of the Speaker, you are there to serve the Zambian people, to protect the sanctity of the office of the Speaker. To trap the Speaker for her to go and embarrass herself in the manner that she did is an offense. So own up and tell us that you didn't advise her to do that. Because if you don't, you are also going to be held accountable for abusing the office of the Speaker to that extent. However, the last question that I'd like to ask is this the kind of meritorious and quality leadership that we were entertained to by Hakainde Hichilema? Is this it? Is this what you were telling us? I'm going to appoint people on merit and we shall govern by the rule of law. No. Is this governing by the rule of law? No. Members of Parliament, you are not going to wait to be vindicated. You shall vindicate yourselves starting today. For you members of the press, I would like to inform you that the party has issued instructions to our legal team to do the following. One, to approach the third wing of government the judiciary, for them to determine whether indeed the ruling of Madam Nelly Muti does not qualify to be referred to as nonsensical, illogical, and unconstitutional. We have instructed our legal team to do that. Secondly, we have instructed our legal team to go again to the judiciary and ask whether or not it is not their duty as the judiciary to ensure that they take measures to deter others from breaching the doctrine of sub judice. Should Madam Nelly Muti go scot-free for commenting on a matter that is active in court? Should she? We have instructed our lawyers to go and ask the judiciary to clear this matter for us. Our worry as the PF is that unless all of us Zambians to stand up to defend the law, pretty soon we shall be governed by dictatorial people. Remember that dictators are not born from outer space. Dictators are born within jurisdictions that have rules and laws, but they become dictators first by throwing away the tenets of democracy and throwing away the rules and regulations. And if we allow now that Parliament can just breach the doctrine of sub judice and start becoming the interpreter of the law, then, my dear friends, we're going to lose the authority and respect that we have for the judiciary. And once that happens, what will permeate society? Rule of the jungle, where some have to follow some rules and others don't. If the whip of the PF grouping in Parliament is not allowed to comment on a matter that is in court, why should it be all right for the chairman of that committee or that meeting to do that? Members of Parliament, you are elected by the people of your respective constituencies. And until the Constitutional Court determines your matters, you have the full mandate of those people. Staying away from the grounds of Parliament on the basis of this nonsensical ruling is to defy the mandate that the people gave to you. Madam Nelly Muti might today have authority over the chamber, but she has no authority over the grounds of Parliament. All of you today are instructed to be in Parliament in the gallery. Go and sit in the gallery to show her that you are not going and you're not about to give up the authority that the Zambian people gave you. Let the people who elected you see that you are sitting in the precincts of Parliament and are not sitting in the chamber because this is the will of Madam Nelly Muti, not the will of the court. It shall only become the will of the court after the Constitutional Court has pronounced itself, it has determined the matter in its finality. That's what Judge Mulembi said, and we're not going to depart from that. So today, until our lawyers get you the necessary documents, stay in the gallery. At break, interact with all your members of Parliament. Interact with them. Don't be cowed. Don't be cowed. This propensity to do things against the provisions of the law must be stopped. And dear Zambians, watch carefully. Be of a discerning mind. The propensity by Hakainde Hichilema and by the UPND to do things willy-nilly as though there is no constitution is getting out of hand. You may recall how he dubiously appointed ministers to non-existing ministerial positions. Who reminded him that that was a breach? The PF. After we reminded him, he withdrew the swearing in. How do you withdraw? You have already sworn in people and you withdraw. And you do it a second time. You remember how President Hakainde was saying, I cannot reduce the price of fertilizer because Edgar Lungu signed a 2-year contract with his suppliers. And yet, while he was saying that with one side of his tongue, the other side of the tongue was firing PSs and DCs whose contracts were also entered into by Edgar Lungu for a longer period than 2 years. What kind of inconsistency is this? As if that is not enough. Those PSs, those DCs, against the provisions of the Constitution, he removes them from payroll. Before paying all their dues. The Constitution is very instructive. No employee in Zambia shall go off the payroll before all their terminal benefits are paid. And if you read the Constitution, terminal benefits are defined to include even allowances. It doesn't say DCs and PSs are exempt. No. Breach of the Constitution. You heard how Hakainde Hichilema told his Minister of Finance to go to Parliament to go and present a budget based on unconstitutional provision. The law says very clearly that the national budget shall be based on a national development plan approved by Parliament. And yet we have a budget now which these people are debating, which is based on a draft budget, on a draft national development plan. Draft which they haven't seen. Another breach. And we Zambians are watching. These PF members of Parliament, because of their gallantry, they stopped the process of approving a budget based on a non-provided constitutional provision. They premised the drafting of the budget for State House on a constitution that was amended in 2016. How? They were telling us these are the most intelligent people that Zambia has created. They were telling us they are computer, wherever they go, me I'm computer. The computers are jammed by power. Because now they have power, their computer memory is gone. Zambians, I appeal to us to be of discerning hearts. If we don't stop this propensity for breaching provisions of the law, we shall hold ourselves together. As for us in the Patriotic Front, I want to make this very clear. We in the Patriotic Front shall stand firm in the defense of the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. And wherever we see a breach of it, we shall raise our voices, irrespective of the consequences that will follow. We are willing to defend our sovereignty, and we're willing to defend it with our blood. A lot of our members are being harassed, are being dragged to police. Our members of Parliament, this is the only country where members of Parliament has become a fishing ground for people to be dragged in and out of police. All our members of Parliament are living under threat. At any one point you'll be called, there's police call out here, police call out there. Why? Or because people want to intimidate us. But make no mistake, all of us are ready. So we gave ourselves to the service of this country. We did wrong things to the people of Zambia, and yes, we're out of government. However, we are not out of politics. We are not out of saving the people of Zambia, and we shall save them even in the opposition. And this time around, we're saving the Zambian people by ensuring that the UPND government governs this country in accordance with the provisions of the law, in keeping with the tenets of our constitution. On this score, leader of opposition, you are hereby instructed that in keeping with our stand of defending our constitution, on which you swore, all of you members of parliament swore on that constitution. And remember, it is an offense, according to the constitution, it is an offense not to defend the constitution. Now, one amongst you has gone against the constitution. One amongst you in parliament has breached the constitution. In keeping with your responsibility of defending the constitution, you are hereby instructed to proceed now with impeachment process. Impeach the one who's abrogating the constitution. Indeed. She is chair of that house to superintend over the business of the house. She is referee. And you're right. You remember the Gabon issue. When Diramba came and spoiled for us in Zambia, what did we say? We did not say, we Zambia will never participate in football anymore because of Diramba. No. We said we shall continue, but we don't want Diramba. In this case, our members of parliament shall continue to be members of parliament, whether Madam Nelly Muti likes it or not. However, because she's a Diramba, we must make sure that she takes her Diramba issues outside parliament, so that parliament is freed of people of the propensity of breaching the constitution to the manner that she did.
Right.
And for you, members of parliament, do this in defense of your personal integrity. Posterity shall judge you. When the history is read, and that on the 8th of December, this is what one speaker did. And all these members of parliament just accepted, they sat back. Then you will fall in the bracket where she is, where she's thinking more about emoluments. How can the speaker, in debating such an important matter, go so low as to talk about salaries?
Imagine the show.
In her mind, the salaries end, the allowances end by members of parliament are more important than they are representing the citizens of Zambia. How can a person think so low?
Shame. Shame.
All of you members of parliament, on either side of the aisle, are now talking to all members of parliament, even those in UPND. Posterity will judge you. Are you willing to watch your constitution being bastardized in your full glare, in your full view, sitting in the highest house of democracy? All of us Zambians are subject to scrutiny by parliament. So, members of parliament, why should you scrutinize the executive if you can't scrutinize yourselves? If you can't scrutinize one of your own? Rise to the occasion. Let Madam Nelly Muti account for her misconduct yesterday. And all the other times that she has shown you. How could a speaker possibly even entertain a point of order? Madam Speaker, is the Honorable Member for Lunte in order to be wearing a green jacket? And yet, on a daily basis, they are wearing red ties and nobody raises an issue. For one of ours to wear a green jacket becomes an issue. On a daily basis, they are in red ties, we don't bother. And red jackets, we don't bother. And the speaker entertains them. When our members of parliament stand on a point of order, they are reminded, which standing order are you referring to? Quote the standing order. On their side, they can talk and talk and talk without reference to any standing order, and the speakers even make a rule. For one word uttered by our members, they are condemned. for the same word uttered by the others, they are commended. When the National Chairman for Information said what he said about cadres in Parliament, leading Parliament, for some moment I asked myself, give us some time. But I think the binoculars worked. It's so far ahead. So the man and his binoculars actually saw what was to come. And what happened yesterday vindicates him. Members of the press, I'll end by assuring you that the Patriotic Front is getting ever stronger. And we're determined to continue to provide well thought through, well researched checks and balances to the European League. Unlike them, who always walked out even on a trivial matter, our members of parliament who walk out like they did on the 2 occasions. One, again, when they were defending the constitution, and I want to say to you, on behalf of the party, leader of opposition, with all of you members of parliament, well done. Continue to defend the constitution. And what you did yesterday to walk out in solidarity with your friends was what should be done. Don't walk out simply because they have an argument which you don't agree with. Challenge them on the floor like you are doing. And the reason they are doing all this is because they are feeling the weight. There are people, Zambian people, continue to support PF. Kagwata is coming. Let's send another additional member of parliament on the PF bench. Thank you very much, members of the press.
Thank you so much, Honorable Vice President. I just want to mention that we've been joined by member of Central Committee, Honorable Suja Chakosa, as well as the leader of the opposition in the House, Honorable Given Lubinda, and another member of Parliament, Comrade E.T. Emmanuel Tembo. Members of the press, it is your turn to ask questions. I can see Comrade Alfred, who can go ahead and ask questions, and the high table will be able to respond.
Thank you very much, Honorable. We've heard about the parliamentary business and what transpired and your position. We also want to hear from you. Before elections, we were promised cheap fuel and other reduced commodities. But just the day before yesterday, the Minister of Finance said ask young people who don't drive to worry about the increase in the fuel prices. Also, for the IMF, we were told the Patriotic Front had borrowed enough to an extent that reached the ceiling. And here we are with the IMF package. I don't know what's the position from the Patriotic Front.
In those 2 questions, Honorable Vice President and the members of the Central Committee, may you pick up those 2 questions. Then, if there are any more questions, we shall take them in the set of 3. But for now, let us allow the Vice President to pick up those 2 questions on IMF and the issues of fuel prices being increased together with electricity tariffs being increased.
We've done this before. Members of the press, you may recall a few weeks ago, I addressed you on one subject, and one of you asked me a question that was outside the remit of the subject that I had come to address. And I requested you to allow me to indulge you that you spend time focusing on the subject matter of that question. I promised you that I'll come back to you within a day or 2 to come and address the issues that you raised in your question. I want to know today is Wednesday. The promise to come back here tomorrow to come and address another equally important matter. Today I would like that all of you, my dear friends, spend time reflecting and reporting to the Zambian on the issue affecting our 9 members of Parliament. That, for us in the Patriotic Front, is more crucial and more urgent than the IMF. The IMF issue can stay another night, and I'll come and address it tomorrow. But now, please, go and spend time writing about these, because if we're going to allow these people to be abused in the manner that the Speaker is trying to abuse them, then you can imagine what will happen to democracy. So let's defend democracy today. We shall talk about IMF and the economy tomorrow. This is an assurance, so please make a date. Tomorrow we'll be here.
Well-guided Vice President, and also we have the full speech of what the Vice President talked about, which we shall share all of us. And I'll ask our comrade, who is conversant with computers, to assist us on these matters. We have no computers for that. So if there are any questions, particularly to address the issues that have been raised by the Vice President, members of the press, you're welcome. If there are no more further questions, we shall do what we do all the time. We shall share the statements. Honorable Comrade Godwin.
Yeah, my question is based on what was raised by Ambassador Mwamba yesterday concerning the Speaker's decision that the affected MPs should go back to the court and get what he called as the stay of execution. I don't know if that has already been taken, because there is a view that your appeal is pending and there is no it hasn't been paid yet, hence making it difficult for the members of Parliament to continue holding those seats until the appeal which is pending is heard. So I don't know if you can help me with what was raised yesterday by Ambassador.
Thank you. If there is any other questions, so that the Vice President will be able to respond. If there are no other questions, I will ask the Vice President to respond, and then we can close the briefing. Thank you, Simon.
Very well. Thank you, Baldwin. I did indicate that we have given instructions to our legal team. One, to go and ask the court whether or not the decision of Madam Speaker does not qualify to be considered nonsensical. And I'm not speaking like a layperson. Those issues of stay of execution, what I'll leave that to the legal team. For me, I'm just saying we have instructed lawyers to go to court and ask the judges, is this ruling sensible? Does it make sense? The answer to which we expect will be no. It is nonsensical, it is illogical, it is illegal, it is unconstitutional, and therefore is void, which will then operate as a state. Actually, this reminds me to say, we in the Patriotic Front are not anarchists. We are not anarchists. You know what we could have done? Have we been anarchists like some parties that we know? The Vice President now would have issued instructions to members of Parliament to walk into Parliament. Had we been anarchists, sort of instructed them go back in Parliament, because as far as we're concerned, that ruling of the Speaker is nonsensical. But because we're not anarchists, we know how to solve problems in a mature manner. Once there is a conflict, you don't solve it yourselves, you go to an arbiter. And that's what we're doing. We don't believe, I said to you, it's unbelievable. But because there is rule of law, we have to apply the law as well. We are aggrieved, but we will not use power. Instead, we use the law. And the law is that if you are aggrieved by somebody's action, you go to the judiciary. That's why I've told them, don't go and interfere with the proceedings. Don't go in the chamber, go in the gallery, so that Madam Speaker can see you. I want her to see that you're there. If she thinks that she has thrown you back to Lunte, show her I'm here, I'm still in Lusaka waiting for me to come and debate and defend the people of Lunte, including the people of Zambia. Had we been anarchists, I'd have told you otherwise, but we're not anarchists. And what you did yesterday was to exemplify your high moral standing, leader of opposition. Well done. That was to show your level of integrity. You just walked out in solidarity with your colleagues to say, this we don't accept. And that's how it should be. But tell them what those who are trying to breach the Constitution, that remember, what do you say? What do they say? In laws, we say, Mazazi Kimasunda. Nobody will tell you what you are in the Mazaz Shango Kimasunda.
In Yanga, we say, Masik will go to Kadama.
What is on them done? Mazuba.
Mazwambo na masana.
Mazwambo na masana. Mamba mbile mdalo. Mazuba.
Na masana.
Jiro, bagali de mega bantu. Uti bagai ndu bagali mu. Chita. Bataka tu kwente lipe. Amu ile mega basa. Disi tije sutwansi. Kwa rumba.
Thank you so much, Honorable Vice President. Thank you, members of the Central Committee. Thank you, Honorable members of Parliament. Thank you, the media, for always being here with us.